Okay, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and kick it all off. Welcome to our Alumni Experience panel. We're so excited to have you all join us today. Our alum have had such diverse and immersive experiences with ISEP, and they're looking forward to sharing them with you. Before we kick it off and get into the questions I know you all are dying to ask our panelists, I'm going to hand it off to our Student Services Coordinator, Heather Sloas, to give a little bit background on ISEP as an organization.
Thank you, Rory, and thank you all for joining today. We're really excited to be able to meet with you all and have our alumni share their firsthand experiences as ISEP students. For those of you who may not know, ISEP is a nonprofit organization, and we have a network of universities all around the world, and we have the mission of providing accessible and affordable programs for everyone. So our programs really are meant to be immersive and authentic, and we focus on having a really rich intercultural exchange with the host communities that you'll be in. As we like to say, we love our students to live like locals. So how does it work? For ISEP, we do offer semester-long, year-long, and summer programs across our network of over 300 universities in over 50 countries. We have two primary types of programs that we offer, which are ISEP Direct and ISEP Exchange. On ISEP Direct programs, students will pay a preset fee directly to ISEP, and these often have more flexible housing and meal options. On ISEP Direct, student placement on a particular program can also be guaranteed as long as you are academically eligible for that program. So it's a great option if you want to know exactly where you're going right when you apply. On ISEP Exchange programs, students will pay the cost of tuition, meals, and housing to your home university. For these programs, you'll also be able to list up to 10 programs per term that you're applying for. And students will be placed on programs depending on the available space available and how they've been ranked on your application. So while we can't guarantee a particular placement, you are welcome to apply to several options. Now, when it comes to health and safety on programs, I'm sure that this is a big concern for a lot of you, especially in regard to COVID-19. But I do want to assure you that all students will receive comprehensive health insurance, as well as 24/7 emergency service, and of course the support from the student services officers like myself. Students will often also have on-site health facilities and support services, as well as options for single occupancy housing at a lot of our sites. Should your program be canceled because of COVID-19, we do have policies in place to protect you and give you options in order to proceed with your program or have other options that best meet your needs. I will be dropping a link into the chat box for this call if you want to review these policies in any more detail, and you can always let your student services officer know if you have any questions. So how do you apply? You'll start first by creating an account at www.isep.org/apply. Once you do this, you'll be put in contact with the student services officer who knows the most about the region of interest, your primary region of interest. So you'll be able to talk to your SSO about your goals or your plans for your program abroad, and they'll be able to recommend some options that are great programs for you. Your student services officer will also be your primary contact if you have any questions or concerns during the application process. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it back over to Rory and our panelists for them to discuss their experiences as ISEP students.
Thank you so much, Heather. So I wanted to mention now, before we get into our panelists telling you a little bit about their stories, I wanted to mention definitely use the chat feature and the Q&A feature, so you can let us know if there's any questions you have for any one of our particular panelists. But thank you so much to our four lovely panelists. We have Kyle from Lake Forest College in the US, who studied abroad at University of Roehampton in London in the UK. We have Carla Martinez from Mexico, who studied abroad at University of Essex, also in the UK. We have Arturo from California in the US, who studied abroad at University of Ghana. And we have Aaliyah from Missouri State in the US, who studied abroad at University of Jyväskylä in Finland. So thank you so much to all four of you for joining us. We're gonna start off with, each of our panelists have actually brought photos from their time abroad and some stories to share with you all. So first I'm gonna turn it to Kyle to tell us a little bit more about his time abroad at University of Roehampton and to explain his photos.
Of course, I appreciate you guys having me on this call. I'll be honest, with studying abroad just in general, I do highly recommend it to anybody who's considering it, especially through ISEP, just because they made the process very seamless. And I think that they did a great job, even with the COVID coming into place during my time that we were there. I think they did a really good job of trying to make sure they handled everything very well, made us to get back on time, make sure we weren't trapped in the countries that we were studying abroad in. And so big shout out to ISEP as well. But yeah, so I'm originally from Lake Forest College. It's a small college out in Lake Forest, Illinois, very close to Chicago. And I decided to choose to study abroad in London. One reason being because I knew they spoke English and I didn't really want to learn another language to try and study abroad. But the other reason was just because I've always had a dream of visiting London. I love the culture there. London was just a very centralized spot because I also knew during that time I wanted to travel a lot. So that first picture that you see on the left side is actually in downtown London. Well, not downtown London, but in London. That's actually in front of the Buckingham Palace. And those group of guys are all on the left side with me. I just met them there. I had no connection to them beforehand. They happen to be all Americans. Funny, believe it or not, but I do trust me on this one that you will meet and have really good friends that you get to know while you're at your host university. I met a lot of Londoners, people who are native to the country, obviously people who are native to the area. And I think, my connection with them as well have grown hugely during the time that I was there. And even now we still keep in contact. So yeah, you'll meet a lot of new people, you meet a lot of great people. And honestly, the thing is, the experience that you guys do experience with each other is something that you guys will never forget. And with me and those guys, like, we're super close now, even though we've only been together for like a month and a half or 2 months during the time we were there before COVID hit. It was definitely a life-changing experience. And I think one of the biggest things that I really enjoyed about not only being ingrained in the culture of London, being there, living there every single day, being able to experience what they live like, it was also the ability to travel to other countries as well, because you're not just restricted to the country that you're in, and to be honest with you, the prices for like a plane ticket to go to Italy or a plane ticket to go to Spain, wherever you want to go to, is a lot more cheap once you actually get to the European area, to get out there out of the US. And so I highly recommend doing that as well if you do decide to study abroad anywhere. That right side picture is actually taken somewhere in Milan. I think it was some downtown little market right outside of our Airbnb that we decided to pick up. Right there, we're picking up some shoes, looking at some shoes, I guess. But that experience in itself was just phenomenal. Being with people that you don't normally, live with, being outside of your comfort zone is what I live for. And I think that if that's something that you crave, you want to be outside of your comfort zone, outside of your own little bubble, I think, and experience just new things, new cultures, and just see the way people live across the world. I think this is something that you definitely should do, and I highly recommend it. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Kyle. I think what you hit on about making friends and how that friendship is so close and so tight in such a kind of short period of time. Even considering for you, especially because it was affected by COVID, so you had a shorter period abroad. The fact that you made such close friendships, I think it's this sort of, you're going through that adjustment together too, and so you immediately have people who you can relate to what you're going through, and it does just make for super fast friendships. And yeah, University of Roehampton, for anyone tuning in, it's an amazing location in London, and also a really fun campus because you also have like the benefit of this lush kind of acres of beautiful green campus, but also you're in the middle of London. So yeah, thanks for hitting on that and telling us a little bit more about your experience. And we have more questions for you later. So I'll pass it on now. I'll pass it on to Carla to tell us a little bit about her time at University of Essex and to introduce herself.
Hello everyone, I'm Carla Martinez. I'm from Guanajuato, Mexico, and I studied law at the University of Guanajuato. And in 2019, just right before the COVID started, I went to University of Essex. And today I'm going to tell you a short story about my experience studying abroad. And I think this was one of the best days I had at the Essex Uni. So I lived at campus and this place that was called Now Towers. I lived in a huge building that was called Tony Tower. So that day started as usual. I think it was the last Friday of November. So I was supposed to meet a bunch of my friends with like Julia, Sonia, and Ben, because we wanted to go for a walk at Wivenhoe Park, which was behind the uni. And this is the pictures that you have, like where you can see a lot of trees and me and another two girls. So yeah, and it started as a walk, but it ended up as a photo shoot. So that's why I have this beautiful picture of the girls and me. Yeah, and after that I had this class, jurisprudence class, and I got lost because the buildings were so confused. And I already got used to the fact that I needed to use a map to find the room I was supposed to be on. But that day it didn't work. I don't know, it was so confusing, and somehow I made it on time. But I still was kind of nervous because I had to talk about philosophy of law. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot speak about philosophy, not even in my own language. So how am I gonna handle it speaking in English? At the end, it turned out very well. I was so proud of myself because I made my, I made my point, and I think it had a lot of sense. So yeah, I was really, really proud of myself. After that, my friend Sonia, the one who's wearing white sneakers in the picture with the trees, she was waiting for me because we usually cook together at my tower when we were at uni. She showed me a bunch of Spanish meals that I still ask her for the recipe of some of them because I love them, and I try to recreate them now that I'm in Mexico. So yeah, we ate, and after that we had our tea time, like really British thing. Because I discovered that there are these tea houses where you can get a nice cup of tea and a dessert, like a traditional one. And oh my God, I fell in love with a Victorian sponge cake. So I always order it at the tea houses. Yeah, it was amazing. And after that, there was this Christmas market that was organized by the Students' Union at the university. So we joined the rest of our friends. The rest of our friends are the ones that you can see in the other picture. So we went there and we spent a lovely time together because we were drinking malt wine while we were hearing Christmas carols performed by this Showcore Society. And one of my friends, Eva, was singing in there. So it was amazing. Yeah. And after it ended up, so we went to my tower again because we organized an international dinner thing. We were supposed to bring a meal from our countries. Sonia cooked tortilla española. Eva brought some Swedish meatballs. Sophie shared with us this Danish pudding that they usually eat at Christmas. And I think Andreen brought a British version of cinnamon rolls from Norwegian. And I think, Kelly cooked crabs. And yeah, it was really, really amazing. I had a great time with them.
Oh, I love that. I love how intercultural all of that was. And it just goes to show, like, I mean, it sounds like an amazing day. And I think with studying abroad in a single day, it can sometimes feel like a lifetime of experiences. Like, it's so rich in everything that you did in just a single day. It really paints the portrait of just how much you get out of a semester abroad. It really feels like a lifetime packed into a semester. Just so many rich experiences. So thank you so much, Carla, for sharing. I'm going to pass it to Arturo to tell us about his time at University of Ghana in Africa.
All right, guys. So, hello. My name is Arturo, and I study San Jose State, and I went to the University of Ghana. And just a bit of context before we move on. I never left, outside of California. I'd never been outside the country. I'd never been even outside of like my state. And so when I was a sophomore or like a junior, I was like, you know what? I want to study abroad. I want to go to a different place. I want to explore different things. And as a kid, I always had this curiosity of going to Africa in general, and I learned about Ghana, how it became the first independent country to declare independence from, the British Empire, one of the first African countries. And I was really curious, and so I started to take the risk, go to Ghana, like let's see something new, experience something new. And once I made it there, I thought I was an extrovert back in California. But the minute I arrived in Ghana, I realized, oh my God, I am so out of my comfort zone. So I decided I should take it step by step. I shouldn't like force myself immediately, just step by step, get used to things around here in Ghana. What you do in Ghana, just try to be like, not acting in, but just, try to adopt some of the culture within yourself. And just to give perspective, the people in Ghana are amazing. One time I was like, it was my first week of classes. I had to get to one of my anthropology classes. And so my first step in like being extroverted in Ghana was asking one of the locals here, like, hey, do you know where this building is, And I remember this conversation pretty well because the guy would tell me, oh yeah, it's like take a left, take a right, and he would tell me these directions, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I am not good at taking in directions, and so no lie, he said, just follow me. And so he would take me to the class, and then he would be like, have a fun time in Ghana. I'm like, hey, thank you, And funny enough, that same person who guided me is the picture to your right, I believe. He's the person with the blue shirt, and to this day we're still in contact. And we would talk about politics, and he would tell me about the politics in Ghana, and I would tell him about the politics here in the United States. And it's just really cool just being able to interact with people. They would teach me the local dialect in Ghana called Twi. And so I got a chance to learn a bit of the local languages. Although the language is English, I still wanted to speak a bit of Twi, just to be like, hey, look at me, I'm super cool, But yeah, and one of the things I also want to mention as a whole is like, I stayed in Ish, I forgot the full name. We just called it Ish. That's where I was staying in one of the hostels. And one of the things we did in the hostel was like twice or once a month, every night, we would, all get together and cook some dinner. I told them, hey, yo, I'm not good at cooking, but okay, fine, you do the cutting. I'm like, I can do that. And so, I would cut the tomatoes, cut some of the vegetables, and, we all get together at night and we will pick a room, we will pick one of the rooms there and, just hang out and talk, And one of the things I learned from like talking to people here, not only did I meet a lot of people from the US, so not only did I meet people from like Michigan and like states I've never been to, but I also learned a lot about the people in Ghana and in West Africa as a whole, because a lot of people from like, let's say, Burkina Faso or like Cote d'Ivoire, they would come in, and I think one of the best experiences I had was a guy called David. and this guy comes from Equatorial New Guinea. And for context, I'm Chicano, and so one of the other languages I speak is Spanish. And so I also hear speaking English, and then David comes up to me and says in Spanish, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" I'm like, "Oh man, like, oh man, you speak Spanish? I speak Spanish too." And so we can start to talk and exchange some of our cultural experiences, So we would talk a lot about politics, talk a lot about our food. Some people were curious about my background, like Mexican American. How do you feel about Trump? How do you feel about your food, your music? And I feel like Ish was the place where, even outside of Ghana, where you get to experience, you got to see like in front of you the diversity of Africa as a whole, But yeah, that's a bit about my experience, and it was amazing. I want to go back to Ghana once COVID gets done.
I love hearing that. And I love just like the fact that you made these connections with people so quickly, and you really talked about real things like politics, culture, like you had just big conversations with the people that you met. And I really feel like you definitely embodied the live like a local mindset. So that was really wonderful to hear. So I'm going to now turn it over to Aaliyah to tell us about her time at University of Jyväskylä in Finland.
Hi, everybody. I'm Aaliyah. I graduated from Missouri State University with a bachelor's in child and family development. So I studied abroad in 2018 in Finland at the University of Jyväskylä, and I studied education there. So my pictures are kind of the one where it has a Jyväskylä on the bottom of it is actually from a Snapchat. And that was one of my best days in Finland. I felt like I was living the Finnish lifestyle because I went there from January to May. So that was a big portion of their winter. It snowed every day until about late March when I was there. And the sun was only out between 10 o'clock and 3 for those first few months. And then by the time I left, the sun was out all day. So, but this day I went sledding with a few of the Finnish students, and it was so amazing. We climbed, this is actually in the middle of the city. There's these really long steps that you can walk up and walk around. And so we went up there and we slid down the hill a couple times for a couple hours, and it was so icy. This part in the picture is you see a lot of snow, but on the other side of the mountain, it was so icy that you didn't even need the sled. You could just slide down on your bottom. And I actually almost cracked my head open doing that, but it was unforgettable, and I don't regret it. And so my next picture is a map of the university. Well, one of the campuses, because the University of Jyväskylä actually has 3 campuses. And so like all of the university buildings are kind of dispersed around the city. And so you have one campus at the top of the hill. And then if you go across the street and down really huge steps, you get to the second building. And then there's this big bridge where the lake is, which I'm sure many people if they've searched Jyväskylä, they always see this bridge and this lake, because people like to walk on it in the wintertime because it's completely frozen, and skate on it and things like that. And across that long bridge is the 3rd campus. And so I only had classes in 2 of the buildings, but depending on your major and your classes, sometimes you might have them in all 3. And then my next picture is Finnish delicacies that my Finnish tutor, we had a party about 2nd, 3rd day while I was there, and they gave us all of the Finnish treats. We had black licorice, which was not my favorite. And Karelian pie, which I grew to love, and a few other things. And then my next picture, which is one of my favorites, is from one of the schools that I went and shadowed at in Finland. For one of my classes, I had a project where I decided to compare Finnish schools to schools in America. And so I went to about 3 schools, and I interviewed some of the teachers. I got to sit in the classrooms and watch the kids learn. And so, and this specific school had a lot of multicultural decorations around their school, and I was really excited to see that because I was so interested in how multiculturalism is incorporated into Finnish schools and lifestyle in Finland in comparison to the US. And so I just really enjoyed my time in Finland. It really opened me up to the ways of the world, and it took me out of my bubble. I always wanted to study abroad, and before I studied abroad, I thought that I would be in London because we had, when I was in high school, One Direction. I was obsessed with them and speaking in a British accent. I watched a lot of British TV growing up, but Finland just was the best location for me. I got so much out of it. I was also very passionate about paid maternity leave in high school in America, because we only have the FMLA, which just protects your job, but not really your income. And so being out there, I was able to do a lot of research on Europe and more specifically Nordic countries, policies on paid maternity leave, the support they also provide for fathers, vacation time simply for leisure and work, and just the ways that European countries are family oriented, which it really invigorated me coming back to the US on how can, you know, we be like this, or how can I find a job that has these qualities, because when I do have a family one day, like I want to have this type of life. And so yeah, I can talk all day about Finland, but
I love it. I think that's such a good point that you bring up about, like, once you study abroad, you can come back to your home country and have a bit of a more insights and a more critical approach as to how is this country handling social policies? How is this country's approach to education? So I love that you had that mindset and you're kind of taking in those differences and kind of thinking like, okay, like when I, because Aaliyah, you are a education major, right? Elementary education major. Can you tell us kind of briefly your major and your background? Because I know you're getting your master's degree as well.
Yeah, my bachelor's is in child and family development, so it really focuses more so on early childhood. And then my master's degree is in early childhood and family development, so it is completely specific to early childhood. Child and family development really focuses on the makeup of the family as a whole. So it's from adolescence as well to adulthood. So it just goes through the whole process of family development. But now it's more specific to early childhood. And I'm also working on a graduate certificate in teaching English to speakers of other languages, which I became passionate about because of my study abroad experience. I just was like, how can I get back over to another country? So with this certificate, I can go and teach English anywhere. And so, yeah.
So you're going to be a lifelong traveler now and an educator. So that's really wonderful. Thank you so much to everyone for sharing your photos. I want to turn to some questions that I have for everyone. And I actually want to start it off with a question that I want anyone to answer who feels like it. But I know before the panel began, we did have a submission of a question on from someone wondering why you would encourage other students to choose ISEP, and maybe a little bit into like your decision-making process and why you ended up choosing ISEP. So I'm open to hear from any of our panelists on that. But if you have any, if you all have any answers, we'd love to hear why ISEP for you personally, and then why you might recommend it to other students.
I could answer a little bit of this if you'd like. So, I mean, for me at Lake Forest College, I think ISEP was one of the primary like providers of us being able to actually go study abroad anywhere we wanted. But not just that fact, I think that with ISEP and their whole entire process of actually doing the application and kind of going through, making it as less of a headache as you possibly can when you're going through it, I think ISEP has done a really good job of it. And I think that what the countries that they have access to, the universities that they have access to, and just their programs in general that they have. I think you have a very wide range of countries and areas that you can go to. And really anywhere you can throw a dart onto a map, and I think you could probably find a university somewhere that ISEP's connected to. And so it was that, and also they had like a direct versus exchange program that I was really interested in. I ended up doing the direct just because of the timing of everything that I did. But with the exchange program, it's kind of nice just because you end up going out to the University of Roehampton, for example, for me. And then in exchange, there'd be a student that might want to come to Lake Forest College and they can come here. And so that kind of reduces some of the costs too, of being able to live somewhere there. And I saw that there was a question about studying abroad, if it was expensive or not. I think ISEP does a really good job about making sure that the costs are low as possible. And for me at Lake Forest College, at least, whatever I paid in tuition here was really the cost that got reflected over there. So it was super nice.
Yep.
Finances were very, very nice. And so it made it really accessible. And so that's why I chose ISEP. But yeah.
Awesome. I love to hear that. Yeah, and I would say to answer the question on whether it's expensive, ISEP's committed to making it as affordable as possible. So as Kyle mentioned, with exchange, you end up paying the same tuition you would at your home university. And then with ISEP Direct, we have tons of affordable direct programs. And so that can also be less than what you're actually paying at your home university as well. So lots of options, and we'll work with you to make it affordable and have your financial aid also transfer. So definitely don't let expenses stop you from considering going abroad. There's definitely ways to budget it. I do want to answer this question now, which is kind of similar to the question on why ISEP, but a little bit more specific. So how did you research and choose the programs that you all ended up on? And this might, you know, depend whether you did ISEP Exchange or Direct, but how did you all go about selecting your programs and doing the research?
I can speak to that a little bit. So I did the ISEP Exchange, and I also had a scholarship that I was receiving to my university. And the way that the stipulation for them to pay for my study abroad program was that all of the billing had to go through my university account. And so a lot of other programs, I would be paying the university directly, but there was no way that I could afford that. So with ISEP, everything was billed to my university, and my housing to study abroad actually ended up being cheaper than my regular housing in previous semesters at the university. And so also just being a Black woman, I don't feel like I was seeing Black women or Black people in general represented in study abroad programs. And so I wanted to experience it and then have the knowledge to give to other people in my community or even people I went to high school with, you know, that I don't go to college with, to say, I did this is how I did it, and made it affordable so that you can do it too. And so that's how I chose my program per se. I wanted to do something that I know was attainable for other people, while still being able to enjoy my experience and have the dream that I always wanted.
I love that. That's wonderful. Yeah, and I think like that's the thing is like study abroad, we believe it's for everyone. So we're going to work with you to make it something that you can afford. So definitely don't let that hold you back. Anyone else? So I guess I'll move on. I'm seeing some other questions come in.
Do you want to ask this one, Rory? Did any of you have a particularly interesting cultural experience you'd be willing to share, like participating in a holiday celebration or something like that?
I think that's a great one. I'm sure we have. I know that there's experiences that our panelists have had that are culturally interesting. Does anyone have one they want to share?
Well, this is more like cultural and linguistic for me. So in Ghana, you know, I took a class to learn some Twi, you know, and we were learning how to say thank you in Twi, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be like, you know, it's just gonna be easy. And one of the ways you say thank you in Twi is me dase pa 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 pa, and the pa 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 is endless. It can last however you want it. And this is to imply that you're ever so grateful. You're really grateful, about, what the person, let's say you're getting some food, let's say I order some fufu and the fufu comes in. I say, me dase pa 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 pa. And it's just so interesting how some of the culture can be reflected into the language as well. And I remember one of the last things I said to some of my friends is me dase p, and me dase p is even an extreme version of me dase pa 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 pa. So you kind of see some of the culture reflected into the language as well. And it's really interesting just getting to know a bit about how that's reflected in language.
I think that's so cool, and I think it's wonderful. So did you take any TWE classes, Arturo, while you were in Ghana, or was this just more so picking this up from the locals that you were meeting?
A bit of both. So sometimes
Wow, you did both. Okay, cool.
Sometimes I would like take the language classes, or sometimes I would have some friends coming over and they would ask say something in TWE, like they would say like "et stain," like "how are you," and then you would respond back, saying "oh, yeah," or something like that. And a lot of the people around international hostel knew I was taking TWE, but they also knew I spoke Spanish. So I don't know if they did this to be funny, but sometimes I would talk to my mom in Spanish, and then they would stop by and they would speak TWE to me. So I had to switch from Spanish to TWE and then back to Spanish again. And so one of the things that I really like about this is that they may say it as a joke, but they're actually here to support you. They actually want to help you out, learn a bit of the local language. And to this day, I still have the TWE learning book that I brought back from the university, and it's still up there in one of my bookshelves.
So cool. I love that. So I'm gonna turn to some. Oh, Kyle, were you gonna share?
Yeah, so I mean, I think during the time I was in London specifically, there wasn't like, I was obviously just being there was cool. It was amazing. But it happened to be when we were actually in Venice, Italy. We were like traveling there. We were in Milan and we decided to go to Venice for a day. And then during the time we were there, they were actually prepping for the Venice Carnival. And if you know what the Venice Carnival is, it's where they have like, they dress up to the nines, like they have the masks on, and like they had this whole stage set up in the center of like this huge Coliseum thing. And it was insane to see everyone, like they love that event, and that's what they look forward to every single year. And it was wild to see something like such a cultural experience like that, like a huge festival, a huge thing like that, to be able to see it in person was something that was phenomenal. And I thought it was super, super cool. But yeah, just a little side thing, but.
Oh, that's so cool. No, I mean, just like visually how impactful like Carnival is, I bet that was stunning to see in person. I really like this question, so I'm going to ask this one now, and then I do have some other questions for our panelists too, but I think this is a great one. So any tips you could give students who are BIPOC when studying abroad, dealing with racism or discrimination? Do any of our panelists want to speak to that? Did you have experiences? How did you deal with it? How did you feel on program? Kind of like, how do people react to you is coming from an outside culture?
Me personally, I had a lot of concerns going to Europe about racism, and I actually have a cousin who is a Swedish citizen, and I talked to her a lot about it before. And the thing that she told me before I came was there were more religious issues than racial issues. And so, yeah, so when I got there, I didn't expect any racial issues, and I didn't really experience any racial issues. Besides one time there was this older lady who was always, when I was on the bus, she would be staring at me, and I could swear up and down that she just thought the worst of me. But actually on my last week there on the bus, she was on the bus and it was just me and her probably. And that was the first time she'd ever spoken to me. And she was just like, I see you and I'm so interested in you. And I wanted to talk to you, but I never have. And she turned out to be from America or a German. She was from Germany and she lived in America for some time and she just wanted to talk. And so, and I know that that's not the case for every single European country. Like each country has their own issues with racism and things like that. But I think consulting with people who have done your program before would be the best option, because they know your location better than anybody. But me personally, I didn't have any experiences, although I was still the only Black ISEP student in my group. So sometimes I had to get over my own uncomfortability of being the only person of color. But yeah, I just think,
once again, like, it's definitely something that you shouldn't, we have country handbooks too that talk about these things, like what you might expect. So it's definitely, I think that's a great point to like do your research, talk to people who've been there. And Arturo, were you going to add?
Well, yeah, I guess my experience also a bit unique because, you know, I'm in Ghana and I'm a Chicano going to Ghana. And I wouldn't say I encounter a lot of, you know, racism or discrimination. I guess the closest to that would be people who are there to like scam you. Like they'll come up to you like, hey, you know, it's like 3,000, you know, cedi, and then you're like, no, like I know it's actually like 100 cedi. And I guess because like the mentality is like, you know, they see you as a foreigner and like, you know, maybe foreigner equals cash, or I don't know what it is exactly. But this is the point where you realize, like, you know, maybe learning a bit about the local language, you know, becomes an advantage for you. So that's when they're like, oh man, like this guy's serious, like, you know, like he's been around Ghana, like, you know, he's not someone you can, you know, mess with. But I never experienced an extreme racism or anything like that. The closest, which isn't even like, it's just like curiosity, was like someone coming up to me saying, oh, you look American. Well, it's like, you're American, but you don't look American. And or
Yeah.
people saying, you know, oh, like, you look Middle Eastern, or like assuming, you know, what my race is. So that's when I tell them that I'm, you know, Mexican American. And then from there, there's a bunch of questions like, oh, you're American, right? Like, oh, what do you feel about Trump's wall? Because, you know, I'm also Mexican. And so, and a part, you know, you have to explain yourself, explain a bit about your backstory, which I really don't mind explaining, you know, my origin story of how I came to America. Less racism, more like interesting, you know, just like,
Yeah, curiosity, really. Yeah. I think that's a good point. It's like, oh, of course, it's good to be prepared for these, but also just to know that the locals that you come into contact with might be just very curious. They're not used to seeing people maybe of your race or ethnicity or from your nationality. So there's a lot of curiosity there as well. So I have more questions, but our attendees have so many questions for you guys, and I really want to prioritize those. So I'm gonna actually hand it over to Rachel to read off some of the ones we've gotten in the Q&A from our attendees.
Yeah, we've got a lot of good ones in here. Kyle, did you have something you wanted to say though?
I mean, I was just gonna say, I mean, the only concern that I had to going to London was obviously I'm Asian American, and the Asian American population. I mean, there's a lot of Asian people technically when you speak of like the Indian culture, Indian people being there, that sort of thing. There's a lot of influence there. But for me, obviously, the way that I look compared to a lot of different people, a lot of people in London, isn't very similar. But I think it was quite the opposite. Like the way that we kind of speculate people when they come, like if someone with a British accent, for example, when they come to America, we're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's amazing. And it was actually the same thing with us and Americans. Like when we went to London, they're all like, oh my gosh, you have an American accent. That's so cool. And like that was kind of like how it worked out, which I didn't expect at all. But that's just my little anecdote of what I dealt with. I didn't deal with any racism at all. So yeah.
American accents are cool. That's nice to hear.
All right, so first question here, and this I think anybody can answer this one. What kind of balance did you strike between schoolwork and social life or traveling around, things like that?
Can I say something? Yeah. Well, it was kind of hard for me to get used to the way the university worked, because at my university in here in Mexico, we have like, you know, this timetable, like you always have the same class every Monday until the term is over. But over there, I had to be like, every week it changes. So it was kind of hard for me at the beginning to discover when did I have time to do some things that were not like academic ones, when I was able to go out, when did I have time to travel or something. So how I did to manage the situation was just to be sure how were the timetables. I don't know, like on Sunday night, I was already sure how they were going to work. So then I just said like, okay, how much homework do I have to do? And then how many things like social ones do I have to do too? So I was kind of like, okay, if I just have 3 things to do for homework, then I can go out three times 2. So I just try to make it like you know, even like one homework, one I don't know, go to the club or something. But yeah, that's how I handled it.
Nice balance.
My experience was a little different. When I first got there, I felt like I wasn't doing anything, which because in America, we're used to having 4 to 5 classes from January to May. And you're doing work for all of those classes. But in Finland, the way that the classes are set up, I had 1 class from January to April, 2 classes from February to April, and then 1 class from March to May. So I was never taking more than 3 classes at a time, and there wasn't as much homework or busy work as we sometimes have in America. So we just had like more so projects and papers and things like that. So I had a lot of free time, and so I had to learn how to utilize my free time and not use too much of it, to the point where when I did have those assignments, I wasn't just traveling and missing my deadlines. And I was able to travel to another country every single month. So I had, I went to a lot of different places, but I had to get used to not feeling like I was always on the go, always had something to do, always had an assignment. And because Finland's education system is very much independent, very student driven, you guide your learning. So, and we have online classes in America. So, you know, we know how to guide our learning in that sense. But even with that, it completely differed from an online course. So I had to learn what to do in my free time, really.
Awesome. Next question. I'm going to kind of double this one up here. We've got a question on finances. And any tips that you all had for budgeting or for saving up to study abroad?
I just want to plug right here the Gilman Scholarship. I'm a recipient of the Gilman Scholarship, and it's through the U.S. State Department. Any student studying abroad can apply. I was awarded $2,500 for my study abroad program, which I used for my flight and some other expenses. So I think that is a big resource to use when studying abroad that not a lot of people know about. And other than that, I worked 2 jobs to save a lot of money, because I knew that I wanted to travel. I wanted to shop and live without the worrying of money. But I think saving months in advance, I saved like 8 months to a year in advance, because I was really methodical about it. But yeah.
That's awesome. Great tips. Great tips.
Yeah, that's
Next
a great
one.
point. And there's a lot of, I was just going to mention briefly, there's a lot of ISEP students who do receive Gilman scholarships, and there's also ISEP scholarships too. So I posted the link for the Gilman. I'll also post our ISEP scholarship link too for you all.
Yeah, and Heather also noted we have a whole webpage about planning your finances and scholarships, a budget calculator, things like that. Definitely your student services officer can also help you with all of these questions. Next one, that's a big one for a lot of students considering study abroad, is how did you find a crew or a friend group when you were abroad? Talk to us a little bit about that process. And did you connect with other ISEP students, or how did you kind of make friends when you were abroad?
Can I tell the story about it?
Yes.
Yeah, no. So I don't know, it was kind of weird the way I did friends there, because I had to learn, different way to talk to people, because it's not the same culture. Mexico, UK, it's like pretty different thing. So I think I was lucky, because I arrived earlier than before the semester started. I was already at the city where the university is. So suddenly one day there was this Facebook group that the university created. So one girl posted like, hey guys, I'm already in Colchester. That's the name of the city where the university is. So I'm already here and I wanna see if there's someone in here too, so we can hang out or something. And it turns out there were a bunch of people who were already there, like me. And then we kind of like said like, okay, no one knew the city. So we put like a famous place that was the Colchester Castle. So we were like, okay, at 3 o'clock we can meet at the Colchester Castle. And I was like, okay. And then at 3 o'clock I just went there and I started looking for people who look like with no idea what they're doing there. So then I found like 2 girls and I started talking to them, and that's how it worked for me. But during classes, I tried to talk to people who were there too, and that's how I got friends.
That's awesome. Anybody else want to jump in? Yeah, Arturo.
So as I mentioned before, I was part of these like group dinners, once a month, every night in Ghana. And so how I found out with that is because I made a goal for myself. I said, you know what, first I want to meet someone from outside of my state. From outside of my state, I'll move on from like some of the locals here. So when I met someone who was from the States, they told me, hey, by the way, we hold this group dinner. We're gonna hold this group dinner like this Friday. You want to come along? All you have to do is like cooperate, do something. I'm like, I'm down. So, I went there, and that's why I started meeting some friends. And even like I also found that when I was in Ghana, a lot of people just walked up to you, and that's how it all starts, That's where the magic starts. That's where the friendship started. So I don't know if I would say I was lucky or I actually did something. I wouldn't, if someone told me, what did you do specifically to meet friends outside of the like dinner group? I couldn't tell you, honestly, because a lot of them just walked up to me, and that's when it all starts.
That's awesome. All right, we've got a lot of questions coming in here now, so I'm gonna keep these pretty fast because we're down on time. So the next question is, a favorite food that you ate at your study abroad location that you never tried before, but that you crave all of the time now.
Kebabs hard, heavy kebabs. It was like a very late night, like sort of food. And obviously London's like, oh, fish and chips, everything like that. And obviously those are really good, but something that I never tried before was kebabs. And they're pretty much, they look like gyros, if you know what a gyro is, but they kind of look like gyros. They got like the pita bread on the outside, but they wrap it up and they're open late nights. So if you're like out at a pub with your friends later on, if you want to get a snack or you want to get some food, like it was the go-to spot. And there was always a kebab shop like on a corner somewhere on the block. So that's one thing I do really miss about London. But
that's awesome. Anybody else want to share one favorite food?
I would say Finnish hash, which is basically just O'Brien hash browns here in the US, but in Finland it just tastes so different. That's one thing I missed. And also they have a drink, a spirit that a lot of people get there called long drinks. And it's basically like, tastes like grapefruit, but it's just a really great drink. And they have it in the US too, only in certain states. So I have to ship it to my house to get it. But that's one of the things I really miss.
Awesome. Okay, second to last question here. How did you overcome homesickness while abroad? Does anybody want to jump in and take this?
Yep. Can I answer this? So it was kind of hard at the beginning because we are like 6 hours ahead of London in Mexico. So it was kind of hard to talk to my family and to my friends, like in time that we both were awake. So what I started doing was like, like I told my parents at 11 o'clock, at my 11 o'clock, you have to be connected. Otherwise, I'm not gonna be able talking to you because I need to sleep, or you need to sleep. And at the end, we just had this schedule, and we used to connect through, internet and talk for an hour, half an hour, and that's how I deal with homesickness.
Great. Anybody else? Okay, next question. If you studied abroad for a semester, do you wish you could have studied abroad for a full year?
Absolutely.
Easy answer for you.
Yeah, I think I needed more time because me personally, I didn't have homesickness. Like I love my family and I love my life in America, but I just was experiencing so many new things that I wanted to keep experiencing. And I talk to my mom every day too. I would at 3 o'clock, it would be like 6 a.m. Here, and she would be getting ready for work. We would talk every day and everything like that. But I think because in Europe, they really encourage Erasmus. So, and I had roommates who were French. And so they had already been there for 6 months. And so we left around the same time, but they had 4-year programs, just all the stuff they got to do, all the people they got to meet. It was really nice. And I wish I would have done a year, but I'm grateful for my 5-6 months nonetheless. So.
I think a lot of students say that they, after doing a semester, they're like, it went by. A semester sounds like a lot, but once you're on program and you're really in the swing of things, it goes by so fast.
And one thing people don't talk about is reverse culture shock. Because one of my friends who also went through ISEP, and she's from California. She went home really early, like at the beginning of May, because she didn't have any more classes. Her classes were done, and I left at the end of May. And she was so excited to get home. And then when she got back, she was like, "Oh, I wish I was still there." And we all had such a hard time adjusting when we got back because we just looked at the world differently, and we just missed doing things the way that we did things in Finland. And so now we have a group chat called Life After Finland on Snapchat, where we just send each other memories and talk about, if we were in Finland, we would be doing this right now, or so don't let your homesickness keep you from fully experiencing your program and make you want to leave, because there's so many things that you're going to miss out on.
Definitely. It's like let it change you. You come back and you miss Finnish life, and that's how study abroad should be. That it kind of, that culture stays with you after you're back.
All right, I think that's our perfect last question. So I'll give it over to you to wrap it up, Rory.
Okay, yes, thank you so much. You all had amazing questions. And thank you for our panelists. You gave really amazing insights, and you've all had such rich experiences abroad. So if there are remaining questions, you always have our team that you can reach out to, and in particular, your student services officer. So they are your contact from when you start that application while you're on program. So these are your contacts. It is based on where you are interested in going abroad, the region you've indicated as where you're planning to go abroad. And you can see their contact information, their emails here. So definitely reach out to them with any remaining questions that you have.